Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I am bringing you my October wrap-up for the novels that I read. I ended up reading 7 novels in the month of October. That is a much higher number than I have been hitting lately. I'm pretty happy with that. So I did a couple of buddy reads in October as well with my friend Jody. You will know that I buddy read with her a couple of books in September, and we decided to continue buddy reading a couple more books in October, so that was nice. So I'll start off with those because those were the first books that I finished in October. The first book was The Ghost of Greylock by Dan Poblocki. This is I think it's classified on Goodreads as young adult, like supernatural horror, but I would classify it more as a older child kind of horror novel. It follows 2 young teens, a sister and a brother, who go to live with their aunt due to some family circumstances. Their mother's not doing very well, and so they go to spend the summer with their aunt. So anyway, them being new in town, they hear about this abandoned asylum. The story goes that long ago there was a bunch of children from the asylum being found dead close to the asylum grounds, and it was suspected that one of the nurses there was murdering the children. They ended up shutting down the asylum, and now it just sits abandoned. So upon hearing this story, they decide to check out the asylum to see if they can find some ghosts. And of course, as these stories go, they end up unlocking a mystery and things start to happen. While I did enjoy this read and thought that it was interesting, it definitely was not what I was expecting going into it. Like I said, on Goodreads, I believe it's listed as a young adult book, so I expected it to be a little bit more substantial, I guess. But it definitely reads more like a children's book to me, like an older child, maybe 10. It wasn't scary, at least not for me. I would say that this should be classified as a mystery with light paranormal elements, and though I found it to be pretty predictable, I think it would be an excellent read for an older child or a young teenager. Obviously, that's not what I expected going into it, and I'm not the target demographic for this book. But I did think that it was an enjoyable read, and when everything comes together, I did think the story got going rather well. I think it was a good introduction for me to this author's work, and I am looking forward to experiencing more of his novels in the future. Like I said, I buddy read this one with Jody, and I'll link her down in the description box below. She has a Twitter and an Instagram, but she does not have a channel. I ended up giving that one only 3 stars, and again, it was because it wasn't what I was expecting going into it, and it wasn't as interesting as I hoped it would be. It did keep my interest, but it wasn't a gripping read for me. So yeah, 3 stars. From there, we went into a buddy read of The Haunting of Blackwood House by Darcy Coates. This is my first book from this particular author. I borrowed it from Kindle Unlimited, and it follows a woman who was raised in a family of spiritualists, and she became rather disenchanted with the life. She kind of felt like everything that was happening as far as seances and paranormal things go were fake and being conjured up by other means than the supernatural. So she's separated herself from her family. She's living on her own. She has a boyfriend, and she's in the midst of getting kicked out of the apartment that she's living at. She's got a few more weeks to get her act together, but thankfully she has saved enough money to purchase her first home. She sees the perfect home for this, and the day that she is supposed to go and check it out, her realtor calls her with the bad news that the house sold just that morning. So obviously she's really upset. Now she doesn't know what she can do because time is so short. And so her realtor goes, well, there is one possible option. Of course, you know where that leads. This house that is the option is supposedly haunted. It has had several occupants in the past, all of which who have had people die while in the house. But our main character doesn't believe in ghosts. The house is perfect. Yes, it needs a lot of work. It hasn't been loved in a while. And it just needs some TLC. So she goes ahead and goes through with the purchase of this house, even though her boyfriend is trying to tell her that this probably isn't the best option for her, and maybe we should look somewhere else. But no, she has her heart set on this place, and she goes through with the purchase. Things start to go bump in the night from the very first night, and she always seems to find a way to talk herself out of the fact that it's anything but a loose floorboard or a window that's not closed properly. Things start to ramp up, and she starts to realize that maybe the things she doesn't believe in are actually real. I again found this book entertaining, but the main character really got on my nerves. She is so disenchanted with the thought of ghosts or hauntings that she, even with her boyfriend, just like shuts him down without letting him speak his mind. And the way that she does it is very abrupt, brash, harsh. I think those are probably good words for how she acts when things like that come up. I didn't care for her. There was nothing in her character that I thought was redeeming. Even once she finally figures out that maybe she was wrong this entire time, it was too convenient, I guess I should say, the way that she starts to change. And it was rather quick that her frame of mind changed about the things that were going on. Even as she's thinking, oh, it's just a loose floorboard. It's, a window that's open. There's times in the story where she gets so terrified, all she wants to do is leave the house. And then when her boyfriend comes, not to rescue her, but to tell her about stuff that he found out about the house, he's all like, let's just get out of here. And she's like, well, no, this is my house. You can't tell me, to leave it. And she's very stubborn, closed-minded. I'm not sure which word I'm looking for, but I didn't care for the way she acted. I couldn't believe that her boyfriend was so understanding about things. Even when he's just trying to help her, she has been so disenchanted by the way that was raised by her family, that she's just obnoxious about refusing help. And I didn't like her at all. Like I said, when she finally realizes that maybe she was wrong the entire time, even that character development for her came too late in the story for me to find anything redeeming about her. And it didn't make me want to like her any more than I did, which wasn't very much. How things were handled at the end of the story were kind of predictable. I think I had mentioned something to Jody about something happening way early in this book, just as a joke, and it ended up happening at the end of the book. And so that was kind of disappointing. The scare factor on this book was pretty good, though. It was definitely eerie, spine-tingling even. Much more of what I had expected going into a creepy book. And so that kind of elevated this experience for me. But I still ended up going with a 3-star rating for this one. I will definitely be checking out the author's other works, though. After reading this one, I had read a couple reviews that had said that this wasn't her best work. And so I will be checking out a few others. I know Sue Morrow over at Sue's Book Nook has read other books by Darcy Coates. She actually also read a couple other books by Dan Poblocki. So I'll be looking to her reviews and selections on those books by these authors when I go to pick up my next ones. But yeah, it was definitely what I was looking for as far as a spooky read goes, but it just didn't hit the mark for me. So 3 stars. The next book I ended up reading was the Book One Cozy's Club pick for the third quarter of 2019. Book One Cozy's Club, or the first in a series Cozy Mystery Book Club, is a book club that I host in the Mystery Madness Goodreads group. We are a quarterly book club, and we focus on first books in Cozy Mystery series. So I was a little bit late reading this one. It should have been done by the end of September, and I did start it in September, but it just took me forever to get through this one. I do have a more detailed review as a separate video already up on my channel, so if you want to go check that one out, I will link it down in the description box below. This one was called Dying in Style. It's the first book in the Josie Marcus Mystery Shopper series by Elaine Weitz. So this one follows Josie Marcus, who's a mystery shopper. She's also a single mother, and during one of her mystery shopping jobs, she ends up having to hand in a less than stellar review of her experience, which leads to a confrontation with the store's owners. Some things happen, and when the store owner is found dead, Josie finds herself as the main suspect in that murder. I ended up thinking that this one was just okay. I ended up giving it a 2.5 stars rating, and you can find out more of my thoughts on that one in my dedicated video to this book. So the next couple books I read were from the Stacey Justice series. I read book 1, which was Opal Fire, and I read book 2, which was Bloodstone. These are by Barbara Anino. I ended up borrowing these from Kindle Unlimited as ebooks and audiobooks, so both the ebook and audiobook were part of my subscription. I decided to read these ones because a couple months ago I put together my series progress spreadsheet, And this was one of those series where I read the first book and then just never finished the series, even though I did feel like I enjoyed that first installment. So because it had been years, I think I read Opal Fire, which is the first one, in 2012. I needed to reread it to get a better idea of what I was going into as I continue the series. I also read the book, Opal Fire, as an ebook when I experienced it for the first time in 2012. So this time around, I listened to a majority of it via audiobook. This one follows our main character, Stacey Justice, who is a reporter for a local paper. She also comes from a long line of witches, which she would prefer to be disassociated from. She doesn't believe in all of the witchcraft and the spells and the omens and all of that. But her cousin owns a bar, and at the very beginning of the book, the bar catches fire. And her cousin barely make it out of the bar alive. When they're going back through the rubble of the bar, Stacey discovers a dead body and then proceeds to unravel the mystery of why the dead body was in the wall of her cousin's burnt down bar. I was surprised to find out that even though it had been several years since I had read this book the first time, I did remember quite a bit of what had happened in the book, though I didn't remember who the culprit was at the end. Like I said, I listened to a majority of this one on audio, and I kind of didn't enjoy the narration. It was okay, but I kind of feel like the narrator was more like a parent telling a story to their child as opposed to a professional narrator. I don't know, that's kind of the feeling I got. I mean, it wasn't bad, it just isn't the caliber of narration that I'm used to, I guess. Also, the way that Stacey is portrayed by the voice acting makes Stacey seem a lot more laid back as a character than the writing of her character makes her seem. So that was kind of a little confusing to me. But I did enjoy it. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I gave it 3 stars the first time I read it, so my rating didn't change at all, which was nice to find. A surprise was revealed at the end of this one, so I decided to go ahead and follow this read up with the second book, which was Bloodstone. And since that is a sequel, I don't want to give too much of a synopsis, but Stacey deals with a blackmailer in the second installment, and I listened again to a majority of this one on audio. The narrator stayed the same, but I think she did a much better job at portraying the characters and narrating the second installment. And so I enjoyed that narration a lot more than I did the first installment, but I still only ended up giving the second book 3 stars. This series is very easy to listen to. Nothing is difficult about processing what's going on. Some of it is actually rather hilarious, but it's not more than just good. I am enjoying it, but I wouldn't say that at this point it would be a series that I would reread voluntarily. I did end up having to reread the first one because I wanted to continue the series and didn't quite remember everything. But I think when I'm done with this series, it won't be one that I reread, at least not up until this point. So I am slowly starting to work through all of the series that I've got in progress, and I think I'm going to try to do a finishing the series project, at least a more focused project in 2020, now that I know what I'm dealing with. I want to pare down some of those lists. So, yeah, 2 books down from the Stacey Justice Mystery Series by Barbara Anino. Both of them got 3 stars. Like I said, it is available on Kindle Unlimited, so if you are interested in supernatural cozies, definitely go check this one out. So the next book I finished was 10 by Gretchen McNeal. This is a teen kind of retelling of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. That's not what it says on the cover, but that's the feel that I got of this book. It deals with a group of teenagers who have been invited to a island kind of vacation home of one of the popular girls at the school. Our main character ends up going because her best friend was invited, and so she's kind of tagging along. But when they get to the island, you have to travel by boat in order to get there. When they get to the island, they find out that the host actually hasn't made it to the guest house yet. So they end up meeting the rest of the people who were invited to this party, and there are 10 of them. And so while they're waiting, they decide to, have some food, maybe watch a movie, and they find a DVD that says, "Do not watch me." Well, what do you do when you're a teenager and you see something that says, "Do not watch me"? You watch it. So that's what they did. And it becomes apparent that whoever created the film is out for revenge. But none of them really take what's said on the DVD too seriously until one of them dies. So if you've read And Then There Were None, I think you know where this is going. But it's been a really long time for me since I read And Then There Were None, so I only remember the basic gist of what happened in that book. In fact, reading this book made me want to go and reread And Then There Were None, just to see what the differences are. But I did end up really enjoying this one. I was introduced to this one because my daughter had read Murder Funding by this author and decided to continue reading this author's works. So she borrowed 10 from the library. I ended up borrowing the audiobook of this from Hoopla, which is a service that is offered by my library. So I listened to a majority of this on audiobook. That was only enhanced by the fact that I found out after starting the audiobook that it was narrated by one of my favorite narrators, who is Tavia Gilbert. So that just made this whole experience extra enjoyable. She is an awesome narrator, and I definitely recommend that you check out something that she's narrated if you've never heard of her before, because I think she does an excellent job, especially with male voices. But anyway, I did enjoy this one. Even though it was kind of predictable as to what was going to happen, because obviously, And Then There Were None. The journey to get to figure out who the killer was interesting. This is a young adult novel, and there were some teenage antics that bothered me, as well as some Asian stereotypes that I really disliked being portrayed. But the mystery itself was interesting. For me, the motive of the killings was pretty obvious. Though, like I said, I didn't know who the killer was going to be until it was revealed. And yeah, I'll definitely be checking out more by this author in the future. It was very easy to read. And even though there were, like I said, teenage antics that bothered me and Asian stereotypes that were being portrayed that were equally as irritating, if not more so. I really enjoyed picking this book up and reading it every day. So I ended up giving it 4 stars, and we'll be looking into this author's other works in the future. The last book I read for October was an old favorite. It was In a Dark, Dark Room by Alvin Schwartz. This is a children's, horror novel, I guess. Not even a novel. It's not a novel. It's a compilation of short stories. I read this for the first time when I was maybe 6 or 7, and it's been a constant favorite. There is a particular story in this compilation that has stayed with me and is definitely my favorite. It is called The Green Ribbon. I'm not going to tell you what these are about because each story is only 2 to 3 pages and it is a children's book. So there's not much substance to the stories themselves. So even if I tell you a little bit, it'll give it away. But if you haven't read In a Dark, Dark Room, you definitely need to check it out. It's a classic for me. It's a classic for me. When I think of children horror, if you can even call it horror, books, scary children's books, this is definitely the first one that comes to mind. And of course, I ended up giving it 5 stars. For some reason, I had never logged this into my Goodreads up until this year, and I don't know why that is. So it is now in there on my Goodreads, though I must have read it at least 15, 20 times in my lifetime. It's definitely one that I enjoy and reread over and over and over again. Like I was saying, my favorite story is The Green Ribbon, and if you read The House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig, I read it in September. There is mention of this story, The Green Ribbon, in that book. And I don't think I had mentioned that when I did my wrap-up for September. But yeah, the story is mentioned in that book, and it just made me want to reread In a Dark, Dark Room even more when October came around. So I read it on Halloween, and it is still a favorite. And that was a great way to end my month of reading, because I ended up giving it the highest rating that I've given a book in a long time. So that's all of the books that I read in October. I still don't think I'm up to par with where I need to be in order to read 52 novels in 2019, but I haven't yet plugged in these books into my spreadsheet. So I will be doing that soon and figuring out where I need to be, or if it's even feasible for me to end up reading 52 novels in the year of 2019. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of these, or if you have a favorite book by either Dan Pawlowski or Darcy Coates, because I'd really be interested to know which one I should go for next. Don't forget to check out my thoughts on the Book One Cozies Club pick for the 3rd quarter, Dying in Style, linked down in the description box below. Also in that video is the announcement for what we are currently reading for the Book One Cozies Club. So if you're interested in checking that out, either check out that video or check out our group, Mystery Madness, on Goodreads, which is also linked down in the description box below. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you're all doing great, and until next time, take care, and Smile always. Bye!